Good evening and welcome to the Athletics, Arts, Music, and Extracurricular Activities Subcommittee meeting. Today at Brockton High School, George M. Romm Little Theater, 470 Forest Ave, Brockton, Mass. Tuesday, October 24th, time on is 5:17. In addition to attending, the public can view this meeting via television or Comcast Channel 8 and 1071 HD version and online via www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. In order to start, let's establish a quorum. Tony Rodriguez is present. Kathy?
Here.
Cynthia?
Here.
We've established a quorum. Today's agenda is Athletics Department update, Art Department update, Music Department update, Extracurricular Activities update, and other business. Present is Acting Superintendent James Cobbs, Athletic Director Kevin Cairo, Deputy Superintendent Karen Spalding, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Michelle Connors, which will be giving us an update. Prior to starting this, I just want to read this into record. The Athletics, Music, Arts, and Extracurricular Activities was established to ensure school sports, arts, music, and extracurricular activities are educational and contribute to the overall education of all students. The committee will be committed to advancing Brockton Public Schools' mission of equality, excellence through athletics, arts, music, and extracurricular activity programs, promoting cultural diversity and community engagement. The committee will see that all levels of school-grade children are afforded the opportunity to have athletics, arts, music, and extracurricular activities available year-round and see where we can grow in areas through the school district. The committee will also work to engage with Athletic Director 9 to 12, Director of Art K to 12, Director of Music K to 12, Physical Education K to 12, and Middle School Sports, Director of Community Schools and After-School Programs, and Coordinator of Recreation Programs for the community schools to support and get updates on all the programs. Kevin, he took off?
Yes, unfortunately he does.
All right, so yep, I know he had time, so we'll start with Dr. Karen Spalding. Yep. My apologies.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for having us this evening. We are hoping to give you a broad stroke sort of overview of each of those on the list up there, athletics, arts, music, and extracurricular activities, as well as give some highlights and some upcoming dates and some exciting things that are happening in each of those areas. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Connors to start with the athletics update until hopefully the athletic director can step back into the room.
All right, I hope you all are ready for this academic person to give an update on athletics. Mr. Cairo, our Director of Athletics, hopes to come back in. We have some big games happening right now, so he is working on those. So what Mr. Cairo provided for you tonight was an overview and vision of what we have going on in our fall sports, our winter sports, and our spring sports, and just in time, Mr. Cairo.
All right, sorry about that. We've got a couple soccer games going on against New Bedford, and we've had a couple of issues, so I apologize if my phone goes off. But we are in the middle of our fall season. And as you can see, we offer the soccer for boys and girls volleyball, field hockey, football, golf, boys and girls cross country, and we had close to 600 students sign up and register to try out. Which is a little bit more than we had last year. We're gearing up for our winter season. Family ID, our online platform registration is up and open right now. And in the winter, we will have boys and girls basketball, boys and girls swim dive, wrestling, boys and girls indoor track, hockey, gymnastics. And last year, we had the highest number of people sign up pre-COVID. So it's good to see that we had those numbers back up. And in the spring, we will have baseball, softball, boys and girls tennis, boys and girls track, and boys volleyball. And we hope to maintain those numbers that we did last year. I really can't see what it says up there, but for me, I can tell you that athletics are a crucial part of what goes on here at the high school. Me personally, I believe that athletics teaches our young men and women things that can't be taught in the classroom, and I just think it's the life lessons and the camaraderie and what they take from winning and losing that will ultimately shape them into being great members of our community. And hopefully they come back, and it's great to see how many of our former athletes have come back to coach with us, and that's something that we continue to hope will be the norm in the years to come. I have a second slide. Yes, I did, and that is on the special initiatives and projects, and I shared this with Tony. We have been working on getting turf fields out behind the out at Policino behind the AZF rink since I've been here. For 7 years, we have been talking about it, and we actually have gotten together with a very reputable architectural firm that has come up with renderings. They've come up with expenses. And I honestly think that it would be a game changer, not only selfishly for the athletics that we have here, but also for our phys ed classes, also for our community, because right now, for a city as big as we are, we have one turf field. That's it, and it's old, and it's out at Marciano Stadium, and everybody wants a piece of it. The fact that it's still in relatively, I wouldn't say great shape, but it's okay shape after 13 years is remarkable. And I give a lot of credit to our outside grounds and our facilities for maintaining that and doing annual maintenance on it. But we're at the point now where it's time. We met with the engineers. They said, you're lucky to get this year, maybe one more at best. That's for the stadium. The other one, what it would do, it would cut down on the amount of use that the turf at Marciano gets right now. Right now, there's youth football, youth soccer, all of our teams that use it, people that use it over the summertime, Brockton After Dark. It's the only place that is playable because it's turf. And when it rains and when we have snow, all the other fields we have here, they're not usable, so the turf gets abused. So with the rendering from Activitas, that's the firm that did the renderings. We have the cost analysis, and what it will do is it will give us a football field, 2 soccer fields, a softball field, a practice baseball infield, 2 batting cages, throwing areas for track and field in the spring, and it's just an unbelievable use of the space out there. Right now, we're lucky to use that 2 months, 3 months out of the year, because the other times it's just so wet and saturated that it's unplayable. And it's a safety issue. So, Tony, you have all of the facts and the figures from Activitas. I think that was ready to go for a city council meeting back in June, and I just don't know if it ever made it to that meeting. All right, enough of me talking. Any questions?
Thank you. I'll open it up to the members if anybody has any questions. Vice Chair Ellers?
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Quick question. I know that last year we had, let's talk about this fall. We had 573 students sign up to try out, and you said that was higher. I know this sounds like, it's not that I want everybody to get a trophy, but what if somebody doesn't get on a team? What is our process with that student, that child, if they go to try out and they don't make the team? Do we do any kind of intervention if there's another sport that they can get involved in? I guess I'm curious how we handle that.
So we do have a couple of sports that are non-cut, and that's usually cross-country in the fall and winter track in the winter season, spring track. So we encourage the kids that want to be part of something to give that a try. And it's actually worked out a couple of times where we've had kids that haven't made certain teams, because we have a lot of kids try out for soccer and we can only keep so many. And they've gone over to cross-country and they've done really well. But the other thing that we encourage our coaches to do, if they do cut a kid, they need to tell them, first of all, why, what they can do to get better if they're an underclassmen, what they can work on in the off-season to get themselves prepared for tryouts for next year. So that's what we try to do. We don't just say, okay, you didn't make the team, you're done. We always keep and what I try to do is the registration window on Family ID, I keep it open for 2 weeks after tryouts begin, because when kids do get cut, I want to give them an opportunity to try something else. And that's worked over the years.
That is probably the best answer you could give me, thank you. I just want to make sure that every kid is kind of taken care of, even if they don't get into their, sport of choice, if you will. So thank you.
Any other questions? No? How are we doing with numbers? Because I know last year there was a decline in the female participation. Is that increasing, or
Well,
is it still
I'm happy to
level?
see that we have 2 soccer teams for girls, which last year we did not. We didn't have enough girls to have a JV team, but we do. The numbers were good. We have all 3 levels for female volleyball, girls volleyball this year, which is good. Cross-country numbers, it's down a little bit from what we're used to, but I think everything comes in waves. We've seen our cross-country numbers really high one year and our volleyball numbers low. So I think that depending on what our middle school numbers are, and that's something that Nick and I will work on to see what our participation rates are, then we just have to see if we can take those and get the kids. And a lot of it happens with kids don't know about tryouts. And I don't know what else we can do. I go to the middle schools before the school year ends. I hand out all the information. I tell them how to register on Family ID. Jess puts things on the website. Coaches send out messages in teams to the kids that they have met with. But for whatever reason, kids will come up here and we didn't know about tryouts. And it's like a week into school and we're a week into the season. So if anybody has any ideas how we can get the message out, I think we do a pretty good job now, but for freshmen in particular, so many of them don't know about it, and I just don't know why. Because, like I said, I think we do a very good job of getting the message out.
Yeah, we have to work on that, with all the social media platforms that we have, making sure all these kids are on social media.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's the video games that it's taken away. So I noticed that this year we don't have a lacrosse team. Is that correct?
Lacrosse, because of the numbers last year, we made an effort. Mike and I sat and we looked at, first of all, the finances, the amount of money it costs to put a lacrosse team together. It's a lot. The equipment is something that a lot of the kids here don't have, and it's very difficult for us to give them a stick, a helmet, gloves, elbow pads, chest protection. It's about $750 a kid, and a lot of the kids that we saw had no experience coming in. It's a physical game, and for liability reasons, we decided that we would offer it as a club sport, but we weren't going to offer it as, and honestly, JV would be the highest level we could ever play. We tried doing it varsity during COVID, and it was not competitive. I had kids get hurt. And then our equipment, it's outdated, and we would have to order all new equipment, and it was going to be close to $20,000 just to outfit the boys, and the girls was going to be close to about 7 or 8 because they don't wear helmets.
All right, thank you. Coaching, I know I provided the members. How are we doing as far as, I know there's a few, are we having issues with recruiting? How are we recruiting, coaches into some of these positions?
Yeah, we still have, I was just talking with Michelle, finding coaches for certain sports has been a challenge. Luckily in the fall, we're all set, but I am still actively searching for swim coaches. And a lot of it has to do with certification. And everybody who is on that pool deck that's in a coaching capacity has to be lifeguard certified, CPR certified, and the applicants that we got from the last time around, they didn't have that certification. So we reopened the search, and right now I think I only have one person that's applied, which is a potential problem.
So that does that mean that we won't have a swim team, or, I mean, like, how do we go out of the box to make sure that we
It's
have?
tough because we have a girls' team, a boys' team, and an assistant coach. And we do have a diving coach. She's coming back, but she does not want to coach the actual swim team itself. And the two people we have, they left the district last year, and it's a challenge. I mean, I've reached out to the person who assigns our officials for swim meets. I've reached out to the coaches that we schedule meets against. I'm just like, if you have anybody that has applied or wants to, just send them my way. And as of today, I've had one person put in.
Wow.
You wanted to coach swimming, Tony?
No, but I know you mentioned about turfing policy. You know, we'll refer that to the facilities subcommittee to take that up. I know we've had conversations, and I know there's a huge need to making sure that field gets constructed. You know, it takes a lot of burden off of Marciano and making sure that we spread out the game. So, but thank you very much. I know you have a
Yes,
busy
I have,
schedule ahead of you.
Brockton, New Bedford soccer is always interesting, so
Oh, yes.
there's where I'm heading to.
Thank you. Oh,
Yes.
Memon.
So in regards to the lacrosse, which is really expensive, and sports like skiing, have we ever thought of collaborating with other outside partners? For example, I know we have tennis here, but like I know BPS, Boston Public Schools, collaborates with like Tenacity. I know they collaborate with somebody skiing. I forget the name, but have we ever thought of like collaborating with others so the charge is not just on us?
Well, doing a co-op it's tricky because number of things. You have to find another school that is willing to partner up with you. We do it in ice hockey. Ice hockey is an example where we only have 4 kids on the ice hockey team. And we partner with Stoughton. Stoughton is the host school. But for the most part, those kids, our hockey players, have their own equipment. They have skates, they have a stick. We were finding that the kids that were coming to lacrosse had like no experience, and they were coming to us and they needed everything. And it was difficult for me to put somebody out on the field who would, and it's very, I mean, to pick up a stick coming into 9th grade, to play lacrosse, it's extremely difficult sport, number one, but if you've never played it before, it can be dangerous. I mean, the ball flies close to 60 or 70 miles an hour. It's hard like a baseball. It's full contact. And we had kids physically getting hurt. I don't think it's because we need another school to partner up with. I just don't know if it's a good fit for our kids, in my opinion, and I'm sure everybody has maybe a different opinion than I do. But if you don't have a solid youth program to teach the kid the fundamentals and the basics of the game, it's very difficult to get them in when they get to a high school. And the other thing is, we couldn't find a coach for lacrosse. I mean, I had people put in with really didn't have any experience, and that was another issue, an obstacle that we faced.
So I wonder if the conversation should be to completely cancel it out or see how we can extend it to like the elementary and middle schools.
I just think that and this goes back to why turf is so important. To learn lacrosse on a crappy grass field, pardon my expression, it's difficult. I mean, because when the ball's on the ground and it's rolling all over, it doesn't make it enjoyable to learn. So that's why if we were able to get something out back that can be used year-round, you can have clinics, you can have youth programs. There's so many things that can come from that. Same thing with softball and baseball. I mean, our numbers are really declining just based on we don't have youth programs in the city like we used to.
Yeah.
Doesn't say that we can't bring them back, but right now there just isn't any.
Okay. And then I know you asked about the tryouts, how to best message that out. Personally, I think if we have homeroom, that would be a great time to be able to explain that to kids, and that would be a great time to connect with them and motivate them for the tryouts. And then my last question for basketball, so how about the TBAs here in regards to JV coach and freshman coach?
Just waiting for human resources to give me a thumbs up on my recommendations.
And do you know why that's not a thumbs up yet?
Because I just finished my last interview yesterday.
Okay.
So I send my recommendations to Dr. Moran, and I know she's got a million other things to worry about.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, just to piggyback on the lacrosse, I remember my oldest son and former member Minicello's son, when they were in middle school, that's when they had the little
the
intramural.
club.
They
Yeah.
had that, and then their senior year, it was officially a team, and they were co-captains.
Right.
So,
And part of that was my first year here, and we ended up getting $10,000 from the Bill Belichick Foundation
yeah,
to purchase the equipment. And then we just found out we were having the kids turn their equipment in, and the gloves smelled, and the elbow pads smelled. I mean,
Hygiene.
it's a hygiene thing, and we were recycling it over and over again. I'm like, I can't do this. I mean, I just can't give the kids equipment that's used, and it stinks. And that's where it's expensive, and it's a very expensive sport, as is hockey, and I think that's why we've seen a decline in the number of kids that play here in the city. It's just expensive to do.
thank you. We'll work on it. But thank you. Again,
Okay.
any
Thank
further
you,
questions? No
everybody.
questions? Thank you.
All right.
Go Boxers. Thank
All
you. Next, we'll have Dr. Michelle Connors.
I definitely feel a little more comfortable talking about this area of athletics because, the big boxer country athletics is a little, whew, I get a little nervous. So a lot of what Mr. Cairo talked about and some of the issues that you raised with feeder systems and our younger sports, we're very fortunate to have community schools under Mr. Matt Campbell. And so this slide gives you an idea of some of the programs that are offered. I will say, as a parent of a Brockton High graduate, she got her start on the swim and dive team in the Get Ready program in the summertime through aquatics. So we are fortunate that we can get our youngsters, elementary and middle school students, involved in programs year-round that will hopefully feed into middle school sports and then high school sports. But as I listen to the questions tonight, I'm going to follow up with Mr. Campbell as well about offerings such as volleyball, as softball and baseball through our middle school community, or through our community schools extracurricular programs, just to see what the interest is. And you notice we offer basketball and wrestling and football and music lessons and aquatics. But when I just heard Mr. Cairo say softball and baseball are declining, volleyball is declining, lacrosse is a different story, certainly for all the reasons that he mentioned. But might community schools be a place where we can start to build up some of that? Any questions on this particular piece? All right. Middle school sports. So Nick Lee oversees our middle school sports. What you can see here is what we offer fall. Winter is split up into 2 sessions, and then spring. Soccer, football, cross country, and the numbers he provided, over 400 student athletes. Winter session 1 is basketball. We do have co-ed volleyball, and I believe part of that is just a lack of interest in being able to field 2 separate teams for our students. And then track and field in the spring. We do have soccer championships coming up next, I think Wednesday is November 1st at Marciano Stadium, 5:30 and 6:30. I was just talking to Mr. Lee about that yesterday. Exciting, but bittersweet at the same time, because when you have championships, that means there are teams who aren't there. And then cross-country city championships are the same day, a little earlier, and they start at West. Yes.
I had a question, but it was for communities, the other
Sure.
side. And it was on, what's our relationship with the Downey baseball? Are they completely private, or is there any way to have because they have a good, like my son plays there, and there's a good amount of kids, especially during the spring, that play.
That is good. That's a great question, and I will follow up with Mr. Campbell on that to find out what that relationship is. I know my daughter, I think there was that one year when I thought my daughter should do swimming, dancing, soccer, and t-ball, and that we were part of it. That didn't last long for me, but it was a very strong program, great parental involvement. The kids really get a lot of support, so I'll connect with him and see what the relationship is there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is that the numbers were declining, so to have a successful program, they merged it and they just came under the umbrella with community schools.
The Downey.
Yeah, so it's just
Okay.
one league.
Yeah, but there's just been like lack of like marketing too. But the interest is there because the numbers, from what I'm seeing, like not in the fall necessarily, but in the spring, the numbers are there.
And so I'm wondering, so I'll follow up with where it says Brockton baseball. I'll follow up with Mr. Campbell and find out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other, Mrs. Ellis?
Really quick, so I know we're talking sports, but what does PE look like in the middle schools? Like, what do they cover in like a physical education class? Like, what actually happens for them in PE?
So I will tell you, I'm better versed in the science, math, English, and social science curriculums, but I can tell you, it is a state law that our students have phys ed, and there is a curriculum. In fact, Nick leads his teachers through curriculum work and curriculum revisions, lesson planning to ensure that the students, it's not, I'll just speak for myself, it's not the old days when I would just go in the gym and we throw a basketball around or square dance. There is a real, there is a curriculum that follows a pacing guide that is consistent across all our schools, K to 12.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My only thing that I seen was that, last year we had 4 middle school football teams, and this year we only have 3. So was there a decline in those numbers?
So that could be twofold. You'll see that here with community schools, and also I think you'll notice possibly, I'm not sure how Nick laid it out with middle school sports. He did mention that it is getting more difficult. In the enrollment or engagement in that is declining, and I think it will be worthwhile to possibly work with Jess and maybe survey our students and our families as to why the decline. It could be a myriad of things. But Nick did say, that combining, he's having to combine teams across all of our middle schools just to field enough players. So that we could be seeing that same impact at the community schools level.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
No further questions?
All right, I will turn it over to Dr. Spalding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Connors. So want to give you a little bit of an overview of both the arts curriculum as well as music. I won't read that slide to you, but will, just in case your attention hasn't already been drawn to the amazing artwork of our students. Those are all pieces of art produced by our students. The art experience for students in the Brockton Public Schools is well aligned to the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education learning standards and curriculum framework. And those learning standards are framed around principles of effective arts education. I won't give you all of those, but for example, ensuring that students are artistically literate, that they understand artistic intent, that the experience is relevant to them, so relevant to their culture, to their backgrounds, to their language, to their experiences, ensuring really broad access to a range of art from many cultures and many time periods and things like that, as well as it being really important that there are family and community connections. And so what you will see in classrooms, and I see it at the elementary, and I know that Dr. Connors sees it at the secondary level, is similar to what Dr. Connors was saying about phys ed classes or gym classes of old. Art classes look very different in a really energetic, empowering way, and that is that students are, of course, creating their own art, but they're also analyzing art. I was actually in an art class at the Raymond School last week, and students were looking at pieces of art, and they were sorting out the pieces of art based on characteristics to try to understand what kind of art they were and what the artist's intent was with the work. And that was in a 4th grade classroom. So that was really, they were talking about it, they were developing oral language and other important skills, but talking about art. So some of the special things that are going, there are lots of special things going on in art, but want to in particular really highlight the partnership with the Fuller Craft Museum. The Brockton Youth Creates student show is a biennial art show, and it features the art of Brockton High students. And so it kicked off July 8th and runs through November 19th. So we encourage you to go and see the art, go to the Fuller Craft Museum and see the artwork of our students. In addition to that, we will be kicking off the 3rd and 5th grade tours of the Fuller Craft Museum. This is something that happens every year, and so every 3rd grader in the district and every 5th grader in the district will go to the Fuller Craft Museum. Just the logistics of figuring all of that out. Kudos to Sarah Richards and her amazing brain to figure out even how to make that happen, and to the schools and teachers who take the students there, but they get to experience the art at the museum firsthand and really dig into those principles that I was speaking to. And then extremely exciting, Student Artwork State House, February 2024. State Representative Rita Mendez has invited Brockton Public Schools to display student artwork in the State House in February. So that's really exciting as well. Do you want me to just move on to music or take questions together?
Any questions regarding art? No, you just move on.
Keep going? Okay. So as I mentioned, both the arts as well as music, the experiences, the learning experiences for students are guided by the learning standards in the arts, Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education curriculum framework. When we think of the learning standards in music, you can kind of think of them in 4 buckets: creating music, presenting or performing music, responding to music, and connecting to music, and connecting music to music and other art forms. And so Becky Desmond, who's the K-12 music director, does a lot of work with teachers. I've seen it firsthand, working with teachers to really unpack the learning standards, ensure that there's a clear K-12 progression in terms of student learning in music. Some of the special things that are happening in the music world. Brockton Band Day, also known as Future Boxer Day, that's October 28th at 12 p.m. And there will be 140 middle school band students participating. Brockton High School Harmonics, the Bay State Show Choir Festival happening November 11th at Oliver Ames. The Holiday Concert, Brockton High School, Holiday Concert, December 19th and 20th. Really exciting, 4th grade general music classes will be piloting a recorder program. They'll be trying it out in 5 elementary schools and learning from each other to give students additional instrumental experiences during their general music class. And then finally, an exciting grant to support marching percussion. So the last slide that we have here is just to provide some more context. First, I want to thank the community members, the music educators, parents, students who have really advocated for instrumental lessons, for music programs in general, but as recently in terms of instrumental programs. Want to thank them for their advocacy. Music is an extremely important part of a student's life. I can probably more information than you want to know, but I started playing violin in 4th grade in a public school district and took lessons right up through high school. And I did not sit first chair in the orchestra, I sat second chair in the orchestra, but that's because the first chairperson had private lessons at the New England Conservatory of Music that my family could not afford. But I'm over it. Apparently not. But I share that with you because personally and professionally, I understand firsthand how very important it is to have music in one's life, and in this particular case, instrumental music. It is extremely important. All of that said, there are a number of factors in the current context and that resulted in the shift in the elementary lessons at the from grades 4 and 5 to the current model, which is grade 5 before school. But extremely important, I want to make sure I just clarify because some questions were asked of me that led me to believe that maybe I had to be really clear about the experience for elementary students, and that is all elementary students, grades K through 5, get music once a week for 40 minutes during the school day, just like they get art class and physical education class and health class and library. And so that's, I think, an important thing, because when we think about well-rounded and giving students exposure to a wide range of subject areas, I just want to make sure that it's really clear that general music in the elementary experience is there for all grades during the school day. The current model is indeed grade 5. Lessons are prior to the start of the school day, more specifically from 8:10 to 8:50. I believe your hard copy might say 8:40, but it's 8:50. 2 or 3 teachers, instrumental teachers, provide some flexibility in terms of how students are grouped, and transportation is provided to bus students who would already qualify for transportation. So there's a number of layers and no one answer to the question of how did we get to the shift in model. So I tried to list them there for you, and certainly am happy to answer questions and provide additional context. This first bullet is intentionally listed first. There is a critical and urgent need to protect core instructional minutes during the school day. And we see that, and when I say critical and urgent, we see that when we look at our student outcome data, especially in the areas of English language arts and math. And so what was happening in some schools to a greater degree, and some schools to a lesser degree, is instrumental lessons were taking the place of literacy instruction, they were taking the place of math instruction, they were taking the place of core instruction, just because when you have limited time and limited resources, and anyone who's done scheduling for anything before knows there are so many moving parts, but there is absolutely a critical and urgent need to protect core instructional time. And you will hear more about that in the weeks to come. But it is important for our students and their overall well-being and their overall future achievement, no matter what path they choose. The district is absolutely committed to a well-rounded education for all students, which means they get music, they get art, they get physical education, they get health, they get library. One of the questions that I have been asked, and I believe was asked publicly, was in terms of the schedule, when we think about the before-school lessons, it was proposed that it works to have instrumental lessons during the school day. That statement, it works, is a little tricky, because it works if something else is compromised. And so if a student receives fewer art classes, so they miss art on a rotating maybe once every 6 days or once every 5 days so they can have instrumental, it works, but it means that art has been compromised. And so it means those learning standards that I referenced, that a teacher normally has a certain amount of days to get to, now has fewer days because the student is having instrumental lessons as opposed to art. And the same is true for physical education, which we know is also required by law. And or it works if we give them fewer literacy minutes or fewer math minutes. There are only so many minutes in the day, and for 5th grade, those minutes are 110 minutes for literacy, 80 minutes for math, 30 minutes for science, and 30 minutes for, quite frankly, social studies, SEL, and a WIN block. And that's actually a new shift and a concerted effort to ensure that the structures we have in place can meet the needs of our students and ensure a well-rounded education that includes really making some strides, especially in the core academic areas, but not at the expense of these other opportunities such as art and music and those kinds of things. And the reality is there are limited resources, time, and I don't just mean budgetarily, I mean time. Time is a resource, and there's only so many minutes in the day. And the model reflects a commitment to maintain specialized instrumental experience prior to middle school. So it was an effort and the result of creative thinking, not perfect, but creative thinking to still try to give students an instrumental experience in a formal way before they get to middle school. A number of different versions of it were investigated by the director for music. So do we do, again, given the time, given the resources, do we do 4th and 5th grade but clump instruments together? Do you only offer 3 of the 5 instruments but offer them 4th and 5th grade? So there were many different possibilities in terms of how that time and how those resources were used. And the decision was based on her consultation with others in the field, that the best use of the limited time and resources in terms of staffing was 5th grade, but maintain opportunity for trumpets to have an experience with just trumpets and saxophones to have an experience with just saxophones. And the model of having multiple teachers at each school provides that flexibility to achieve that model. And then finally, I just wanted to include this. I will say the conversations around putting instrumental lessons before school started in at least 21, 22. They may have even started before that. I was not part of those conversations, so I can't share that with you, but what I did want to share was the result of those conversations is that memorandum of agreement between the Brockton School Committee and the Brockton Education Association, which has the recommendation. So there was a committee formed as part of that, and it makes the recommendation for moving lessons prior to the start of the school day. Again, I was not there for those conversations. If I had to guess, they're probably similar to some of the things that I just shared in the other bullets. Questions?
Questions for any members? Ms. Mendes?
So I understand the urgency about making sure that we're not compromising literacy, reading, science, math, etc., the content, the curriculars. Can I ask you a personal question, though? Because when you opened up, you said, I take instrumental classes since 4th grade. And the only reason why I was able to do that was because my public school offered it. That resonates, and that's very powerful, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that you are openly saying, if it wasn't for the public school system, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So how was it set when you were a 4th grader?
So the other piece that I didn't share is the only way you could, back when I was, and so I went to the Cambridge Public Schools, if anyone's curious, but the only way you could participate in the instrumental program was if you maintained A's in the core academic areas, because we missed instructional minutes.
Okay, so has that been a conversation of how to still give that opportunity to students, and maybe scheduling, not necessarily being an A student, but scheduling around depending upon the student and how they're performing? Because I feel like from hearing you talk, it sounds like we're just putting them all in like one bucket. And it's like, well, because our data is not showing that we're moving forward, even though you could be proficient, even though you could be, ahead and gifted, we have to put you in a bucket because overall our data is not there yet. That's personally what I'm hearing. Please correct me if I'm incorrect on that.
So I think for me, to provide instrumental lessons during the day only to those who are solid in their academic skills would create an inequity.
So that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, because during the day, you also mentioned there's specials and there's others too. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is, because let's say there's 10 lessons offered in one day, out of those 10 lessons, we have to be very careful of students that need their minutes, especially special education, right? Yep. They need to make sure they get those minutes because that's legally. Yep. So they would get their core minutes, but then finagle and how we are able to be able to, the students that really need those minutes, how we can use maybe specials to be able to use that for instrumental. And then let's say I'm a student that I'm just proficient or I'm just advanced, right? Can I myself, use where once a week I'm missing some minutes of math or whatever, and probably make that up for homework, etc.? Is there a way to kind of work with the schedule depending on the student versus taking the resource off completely?
If I understand you correctly, which I might not, so I apologize. There are 5.5 instrumental-ish teachers for 11 elementary schools, and they also do instrumental at the middle school. So part of the challenge is they either work an elementary schedule or a middle school schedule, because they can't, so it's either middle school hours or elementary hours. And whichever one they end up designated, one of the levels ends up not being able to use the full breadth of the day. So that creates a pressure on the schedule. The other issue is then they're traveling, just the amount of travel they have to do from one school to the next. And in addition to that, which happened with lessons during the day, is that then the instrumental class, like when it has to happen, because that's when the instrumental teacher can be there, because they also have to go to the middle school and they also have to potentially go to other elementary schools, that drives the schedule for the entire school. Because, for example, we want all of our 5th grade teachers off, because the specialists also serve as provide the prep, the contractual prep for teachers. And so what you end up having is, because instrumental can only happen at that time for that child, given those circumstances, is that then drives the schedule of potentially 120 other students, and could mean that then the entire 5th grade team, for example, can't be off at the same time. And we know the benefits, obviously, of making sure that grade levels are off. So there are, I'm fearful that I'm sounding like, no, we can't do that because, but there are so many pressures on the schedule that to create a schedule, given the staffing we have and given the minutes that we have, that would address sort of individual students, depending on where they have what they have, would have implications for the entire district and all of the other students. One of the things that we did going into this year was actually revamp the entire elementary schedule, because the other thing that was happening, and you referenced it, was whenever we plan for, and I know you know this because you do the work, but for others, whenever we plan schedules, we should always, always, always plan with students with disabilities and English learners in mind first, and figure out how we can service, and some students, many students fall into both buckets, figure out how we can provide services and support them in the way that they need to be supported, and figure out how we can put in the other pieces. Those are the most effective schedules in terms of meeting the needs of all learners, not just students with disabilities and English learners, but again, limited time, limited resources. And so one of the things that we did moving into this school year, because there was some real inconsistency in schedules across the elementary level, is try to create uninterrupted instructional blocks, and then other instructional blocks where students with disabilities and English learners could get the services that they deserve. And so we did that thoughtful planning moving into this year. And even just doing that was a heavy lift, because again, if you have traveling, if the art teacher, the Angelo School's a good example. They have 9 5th grades, or 8 5th grades. And so you can't, it's not just an art teacher, one period, 5 days a week, because that only covers 5 of them. So they have to come somebody else either has to come a different period from another school or what have you. So there are just a lot of pressures on the schedule. And just going back to sort of thinking about what I said when I think about what I said in the beginning, that I would be concerned if a student was missing math instruction for instrumental. And I would actually be concerned if they were missing math instruction to take advanced art, or in this particular case, we're talking about instrumental specifically, but other specials in some other districts have other opportunities as well. This just happens to be instrumental we're talking about, but we have to really maximize the good, excellent instruction that students are exposed to. And the more interruptions we put into the schedule, the less we are able to do that.
Okay, so how about after school? Has that ever been an option? Or is that like violating contractual hours for instrumental? And can that be somehow talked about?
So
Sometimes I know in elementary school there's morning meeting. Is there like any flexibility among what's happening where there's not core subjects being taught?
Yeah, so we definitely looked into morning meetings. So morning meeting, again, for the public who might not remember back to elementary level, it's typically a half hour. We do breakfast in the classrooms, which is fulfilling another important need, of course. So doing instrumental during that time is a little tricky because of it's sort of breakfast and morning meeting around SEL, so they're kind of multitasking. We did definitely look into that as a possibility. The after school gets a little tricky because one of the reasons why we're able to do the before school within the contractual hours of the instrumental teacher is because they can work, for example, a middle school schedule, which starts them at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though the elementaries don't starts at 8:05, but the elementary schools don't start till 9. So they're able to, as part of their regular day, even though it's not like the elementary regular day, part of their regular working day, are able to do instrumental lessons and then go off and do other, in some cases, they might do a general music class at the elementary and then they go to the middle school where they do instrumental and band and things like that. So there isn't that doesn't work after school. If we had funding to provide after school lessons, that would be different. But this allows us to do it within the already existing funded teacher contract, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So then the instrumental, what was the decision? I think I missed this. Why start in grade 5th? Because what the public I hear talking a lot is, why isn't it starting grade 4 like it used to? And now why change it to just grade 5th?
Sure. So the elementary level was cut a number of positions last spring. We had 2 instrumental teachers cut. In addition to that, we actually had 21 instructional coaches cut. And so with 2 fewer people sort of in the mix, that made it, then you just don't, again, limited resources, people in that particular case. So then came the conversation of, okay, so you have this many people that could do this many things. Do you have them do 4th grade and 5th grade? But in order to have enough coverage for those sections, what you would then lose is you'd have to combine like all the brass instruments together, all the woodwinds together, or maybe not offer percussion or something like that. So the sticking to 5th grade and not doing 4th and 5th grade allowed the model to maintain more individualized instrumental lessons. So it was kind of like you have this much staffing to work with. Not an ideal situation, but what is the best situation given the resources?
So it sounds like the root problem is staff, because we're so low in staff. That's what I'm hearing.
The root problem for why there's not fourth grade?
Yeah. It
Yes.
sounds because we
Yes.
we cut so much staff out.
Yes, the two, yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you
Yes.
for that. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Vice Chair Ellis?
Thank you. I'm trying to keep my eye on time, but I do have a question, and my colleague, I concur with everything that Ms. Rivas-Mendez had mentioned. Those are the same questions I have, but I just feel like it was such a complete surprise to parents about the change in the instrumental piece. So my question is, how do we do you know how we communicated with them to let them know about this change? Like, how is it conveyed to parents? How were they communicated with to let them know this change this year versus last year? I'm just curious how that communication plan was rolled out.
So they were communicated via email, via a letter, via email. There was not a meeting with them.
And do we know approximately how many students this change impacted? Like, what number of students it actually impacted in terms of their schedule during the day, parents' schedules, that sort of thing?
I will. Do you mean in terms of how many students are actually in the before school? So the tricky part about how many it impacted is I won't know how many potential fourth grade students there might have been, but I can tell you how many fifth grade students there are now, does that make sense?
Well, like my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is it's kind of an anomaly to have the direct instrumental lessons during the day, like for us to be able to offer them during the day the way it was previously, before we changed to the, before school model. My understanding is that that's a bit of an anomaly, and a lot of other schools don't do that, but we've always done that for years. And then we got to the point that we were sacrificing core subjects for the instrumental lessons and made the change, which I understand that concept completely. I guess my question is, how many students are no longer coming in the morning to participate in instrumental that were getting instrumental lessons this time last year during the day? I guess what I'm wondering is how many students are now no longer participating in that program at all because they just can't?
That number is probably about 100 students.
Okay. Okay.
If it's at all, helpful, I think also this has provided a larger conversation within the department of how to keep students motivated to participate in instrumental lessons. The dwindling numbers were also observed last year. Somewhere around 67% of the sections had 4 or fewer students, in some cases 1 or 2. So it was, I think there's an opportunity to think about how also we motivate students intrinsically and connect them. And again, not only to instrumental, that's obviously what we're talking about now, but other areas and opportunities to advance their skills.
And I realize I do not want you to feel like you're the target, like we're asking you the questions. Like I appreciate you standing up there and answering our questions so that we can then, communicate and educate our constituents, that sort of thing. I just felt like the past couple of meetings, it came as such a surprise to some of the parents. And so I just wanted to confirm that there was communication that went out to them, in what form of communication it is. And my only other thing that I would say is one thing that I found is that if we are doing too much emailing, the athletic director, Mr. Caro, mentioned this earlier. I don't know how to communicate better, but I think what's happening is we could quite possibly be over emailing our parents and our students, that they're ignoring the emails as they come through and they're just not seen. And so I don't know if that means finding another media platform to use. I don't know if we could use like texting. I have no idea, but I guess my question is, I'm concerned now that we are communicating with parents and students and they're saying I didn't know about it, and it quite possibly could be because they're getting too many emails and they're just not reading them.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to say one more thing? Is that okay?
Whatever you want.
I'm a rule follower. Just to again provide some context, and maybe this is a topic for another meeting, but when we think about budgets and staffing and cuts, I would just encourage us to think about this specific case within the larger context of what staffing looks like at the elementary level. I have second grades that are 27, 28, pushing 29. So there, not to mention opportunities for additional staffing need in special education. So I would just encourage us to think about this within that larger context of the broad scope of needs at the elementary level. Because we do not have an enrollment declining at the elementary level. It is good news. It is good news. And finally, just want to say amazing work on behalf of the instrumental teachers and Becky Desmond. And this has been, everyone's advocating for what they know is the right thing and right thing on behalf of kids. And it's figuring out how can we get there. And just want to thank them for their advocacy as well as the families and parents and community members.
Any further questions? Just my opinion, I mean, knowing that you have 100+ students that are not able to participate, it's like you can actually take, this music lessons and make it into like an after-school program, like it's a sport, treat it that way if that's gonna alleviate some of the concerns that the parents have. And I understand that, the committee did take that up about instructional time being lost because of this. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for all your insights, and we'll be meeting again and getting an update down the line.
All right.
Thank you. Like I said, I mean, I'll just close out by, just saying that just my personal opinion, how I look at, music, arts, and athletics. And when I came on the committee, not seeing a subcommittee to address these issues is, when you look at the athletics, I played baseball at West Junior High, and it doesn't exist. It's like, what happened? Like, how did that, just disappear? My vision is that I think that the district and the leaders that are in the position is to grow that more and offer every athletic sport that's offered here at the high school, at the middle school level. Because, middle school is that turning point, so we can engage them. Like I always, repeat myself, I don't think a child or a student should wait until they get to the high school to join the swim team. How come we're not offering swim and tennis and every other sport at the middle school level? So thank you. And also, we don't need to take a vote to refer the Policino field because we already have that as unfinished business through the subcommittee with facilities, and I could work with the chair on that. So other than that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Ellis, properly second by Mrs. Mendez. Raise your hands.
All in favor?
Adjourn.
Great.
Oh, I like that.
Good evening and welcome to the George Romm Little Theater. Tonight is Tuesday, October 24th, and we're meeting to go over we're meeting for Policy Committee. And so at this time, I want to read into the record. You can join us also, in addition to attending, the public can view this meeting via television on Comcast Channel 08 and 1071 HD version, and online via this link, www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. On the agenda tonight, we have a couple of things to go through. Let me establish a quorum first. Ms. Sullivan?
Yeah.
Mr. Homer?
Here.
Ms. Mendez?
Here.
I know Mr. Rodriguez is here, but he has stepped away for a second, and Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah. Here.
And the chair is here as well. And Mr. Rodriguez just joined us again. Thank you. So the first thing on the agenda, and I don't know if Dr. Cobbs is coming back, but the first note on this agenda is the cell phone policy. I did not put that on the agenda, and so I'm not sure if we want to talk about that. But I will say that I've gotten a couple of emails in regards to the current cell phone policy versus the cell phone policy that we proposed. My understanding, and I'm opening the floor for this, is that we kept the same cell phone policy we had previously, but the decision was for us to enforce the one that already exists. Does anybody else, I'm being dead serious when I say, does anyone understand it any other way? Mr. Rodriguez, please.
When we voted with the new change was included the yonder bags, but it did include, first warning, second warning, calling home or calling the parents, having a sit down. So that's what we actually voted on.
Well, I know that we had the yonder bags on the budget. Did we actually receive them, though?
That would be a question for the acting superintendent?
Yes, that's why I was saying, I'm like, that was one quick question that I had, is I don't think we actually received the yonder bags for us to be able to roll out the new policy. And so I wanted to confirm with Acting Superintendent Dr. Jim Cobbs if we are, right now, the existing cell phone policy is the one that we are enforcing, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. And that if my understanding, again, we're going to roll out, there's Dr. Cobbs, we were going to test that and then roll out the new cell phone policy this time next year, but give everybody a year's worth of time. So
I think there was an issue with purchasing, or it was a lease, and I think we were under the impression that it was being purchased. I mean, you can.
yes.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I guess we found out later, again, I wasn't involved in this, that was Aldo and Mike at the time. So we can't actually purchase the yonder pouches. We have to lease them. And from what I understand from the companies, we have to lease enough for this whole high school population, which will be about 3,600, and the middle school population. So even though when you voted on the policy for the cell phone, it went from all the students using them every day to just a few students using them one at a third offense for a violation for this policy. So we would have had to lease probably 5,000 pouches and probably actually use in a day's time, maybe 100, so a couple hundred anyway. So we'd have to have all those on hand and pay the cost of them. So. And I understand too that they were never ordered in time for the school year either, because they waiting for the vote from the school committee.
So that's what I was just saying. I'm like, my understanding is that we didn't order them before the school year. And so what I wanted to confirm is the cell phone policy that's being enforced right now, the original policy before the change. Is that true?
So basically, the cell phone policy is being enforced right now working on being enforced right now. There is no pouches. So that's what this committee has to consider to change that policy, adapt it, because we do not have the yonder pouches. So the policy needs to be changed.
So again, I think my question would be, do we have to change our vote?
Right.
Because, well, number one, at one point, we voted on just the high school. When did we add the middle school?
I thought you voted on the middle school as well. That was my understanding, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, we did mention, actually, I'm the one that mentioned to include the middle school as well. But going back to the yonder, doesn't make sense to go and lease 5,000 if we're only going to use 100.
Exactly.
Do we have the ability to just, I don't know, lease out just the 1,000 or 500? I mean, like how much?
Well, that's what I understand the company's policy is they want to, lease them for every student.
So for every student?
Right.
So at this point, and I'm not even sure how to handle this legally, but would we refer this back to the facilities subcommittee at this point to decide whether to, I'm not sure how to,
So I think it has to be the policy committee, and I know it's a committee of the whole, but you have to vote to change the policy, or, you might have to decide if you want to lease all of them and only use, a percentage of them, maybe 20% of them at best.
if I remember correctly, we have about $30,000 in the budget for that. I think that's what we budgeted. Is that not enough money to cover what we need to cover?
I can find out the actual cost because I think it changed, but that again,
75?
you'd have to.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step
That
on
was
your
enough
tongue.
to cover the whole, leasing all of them. And again, understanding that we're leasing them, we don't own them, we have to return them at the end of the school year.
That is not at all what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I'm like, I just don't want everybody to think, I was just like, that is not at all what.
Which is an interesting concept because we're going to give them to the students and they own them all year. They keep the same pouch all year and they keep their phone in it. That was a program. And then at the end of the year, we return them, but the students will write on them. They'll put stickers on them. They'll put glitter on them. They'll put, whatever. And then we're still going to return them. So doesn't make sense to me, but.
So I'm going to open the floor. Yeah, Ms. Rivas Mendez, please.
So I seen the Yonder pouch act differently in the Boston Public Schools that I go. I go to 5 different ones. First of all, I do think it's a great idea to start in the middle school because once the middle schoolers get used to and they come to the high school, it's something that has been a norm since they started. But the way they use it, instead of physically giving the pouch to the student, what they do is they keep it in a bag and they have already advised the families that this is going to happen. And this is at a middle school level. And then what happens is during morning meeting, which Karen explained to us what morning meeting is, they'll take it, they'll put it in the bag, they'll lock it. And then right before they do dismissal, about 30 minutes, 40 minutes to give them enough time, the key goes around, they open and make sure they give it back to the student. So the student could have it at least 10 minutes before they head out
So
of the
they
door.
actually take the phone away from
So
the
they
student and put
actually
it in the
take
bag
the
and
bag
store it
away.
somewhere?
So now that person, I know staff shortage is something that we have to discuss to be able to do that. But usually where I seen the classes that I go to is the paraprofessional. That's usually general ed classes, general ed inclusion classes. So that might look different in a different class where there's physically not a para. But the idea is that they take care of it. And I don't know if that's a contractual thing as well that has to be added. I don't know the logistics behind it, but when I've seen it, it works pretty effective. Kids get it. They're not complaining about their phones. But again, this is middle school level. So I'm not sure how it works in the high school, but that might be conversation of why we really need that homeroom period, maybe.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit because when I was principal at Edison Academy and I had the Keith building, we had the Champion School and the B.B. Russell. And at the B.B. Russell, the policy was every day when the students came in, we'd check them in, and we would take their phone and put it in a bag with their name on it and put it in a cart. And so, and for the most part, some students, cooperated, but then you had the students that would give us an old phone and keep their phone with them. And also as a principal, we lost phones. I had to replace a couple of cell phones. So if you multiply that by all the middle schools, 5, 6 middle schools and the high school students, and I'll tell you, high school students, you saw that you were at the parent forums when we talked about these policies. The students do not want to give up their phones. So, the teachers are going to fight with the students at the door to put their phones in the pouch or take them. So conceptually, it could work maybe at the middle school level, but it's a problem, and it creates other issues with liabilities for cell phones and, $1,500, iPhone 15s, just something to consider too. So yeah, I've experienced it, and it's, students know how to game the system pretty quickly, and again, they keep their phones, or they have duplicate phones, old phones, or sometimes at the end of the day, they took somebody else's phone, so, or it disappeared anyway, let's put it that way. I can't say students stole them, but anyway, we've lost some cell phones.
Ms. Sullivan?
I just wanted to know, Dr. Cobbs, where do you see the problem with cell phones mostly? In the middle school level or the high school level?
Well, definitely at the high school level. I mean, I really, I haven't been in the middle schools. Like I spent 6 weeks here at the high school with the students. It's certainly a problem at the high school level. It is, and I can imagine it's not any different because I see students, at the middle schools, outside the schools with their phones, and everybody's got their face in the cell phone. But I do agree with Mr. Mendez that it's probably easier to start at the middle school level and institute the policy, and because one, you just have a smaller population, and you have more adults, for students in the middle schools than you do at the high school.
Because I'm not really hearing that there's a problem at the middle schools from my constituents.
It is.
But I do hear that it is
yeah,
at the high
middle
school.
school students have their cell phones, and it's just a problem just as much. And again, I just think conceptually it's easier to start at the middle school, but,
Thank you.
yeah. You're welcome.
So, and just to elaborate a little bit more on the challenges with enforcing the existing policy. And so is there, like, from your perspective, is there a fear, like, okay, we're already struggling and challenged with enforcing the existing policy? Like, this is going to be something that would be way beyond, like, I guess what I would say is, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think what I'm hearing you say is not now, with the on the bag and taking the phones and really working on in the classroom, the policy in the classrooms. Because we started off this school year with the students, particularly all the students actually, and that's why when we first day of school, when the Infinite Campus went down, it was a disaster because the leadership team, in their vigor and excitement, and I have to say, this it's not in a bad way, but the millennials or Gen Xers, and they live with their phones, and so they decided to let the students access their schedules through Infinite Campus and walk around with their phones to get to their classes. Infinite Campus went down, then all of a sudden they couldn't get to class. We figured a workaround, but so we did not print the paper schedules as we typically do. So that was a setback. So the students use their phones to get to their classes or the Infinite Campus to access it during the daytime, which is not a bad thing. But then what happens is, how do you know what they're using it for? So walking around the building, students are looking at their cell phones, but they have the earbuds in, so they actually listen to music on their cell phones when they're walking around the building or in the cafeteria. The enforcement of the problem should be started in the classroom, with the teachers and students, and that's what we're working on. We just had a meeting about this afternoon before I came here, so to really start working with the teachers and the staff about using their cell phones in the classroom. In the cafeteria, when they're sitting there for a couple of hours because they don't have a teacher, and the teacher's absent without a sub, quite honestly, I don't care if they use a cell phone. They watch a video, because if they're in the cafeteria doing that, we know where they are. We're not chasing them around the school here, literally chasing them around the school. So the real issue, so I would say, not now trying to institute this policy of the yonder bags, and we did a lot here at the high school in a short amount of time to try to institute a whole lot of things with new leadership team, with the yonder bags, with the dress code, the attendance policy, and a new team that's like, which way we go first. So I would say not now.
Okay, any questions? Ms. Rodriguez, please.
I mean, there's got to be, another option, but, besides, it's not just yonder. I mean, when you look at it, it's like, money bags, it's a key. I mean, something to that nature. I mean, we just got to explore everything because that the state is looking at districts to implement a stricter cell phone policies, and you can see in the news that a lot of these districts are going to yonder. But I think there's probably something else out there other than yonder that's cost effective that we can actually own, other than leasing, because we're not in the business to just leasing. So I'm pretty sure you and your team can come up with some great solutions make
Yeah,
sure that-
I can, and I can certainly have a conversation with Commissioner Riley, because this was his baby, or at least from DESE, and that's why they provided some monies for students, for, for school systems that wanted to institute this policy, but, and I think it was like for the first year, but it's ongoing. Every year we'll have to put money in the budget to lease or buy or replace them, just like we do anything else. I can certainly look into other options similar, but if that's the will of the committee.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, Dr. Cobbs, I understand that you don't think it would work this year. Do you think it would work next year? Or what would happen if you put it off a year?
It could work next year, but I agree with Mrs. Mendez that, maybe start next year in the middle school, or even this year in the middle school if we found something that would work. And because again, you have that population, it's just smaller population deal with in every middle school than it is 3,600 students in this school at one time. And at this age, at high school age, it's ingrained in their brains. My phone is part of me, literally. And so if we started it either later this year or next year at the middle school level, and then they kind of grow up with that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rivas-Mendez, please.
We should start it earlier than later. And also, if there's any way that we can grab data from other districts that have found this effective. I know, from my understanding, the Safety and Traffic Subcommittee went last year to Springfield. But then when we think about Springfield, the school, and how different it is from Brockton High School, just getting more data, and I think getting that data and trying to explain to parents by being more efficient and effective than just saying we need to do this because of this.
Yeah, I understand. And again, I attended the forums. I was sitting in the back room listening to parents and students talk, and they were they were adamantly opposed to any sort of taking the cell phone away and locking it up in any kind of way. So you have that too to still consider. Maybe not so much in the middle school. It might be we can work on doing a better campaign with it, and have the parent forums and send the surveys out. But I think because usually that's when students get cell phones. Probably sixth graders, that's when they start getting cell phones. So.
Mr. Rodriguez, please.
Just a point. I don't think it's a problem with the cell phones. I think a lot of, what I heard, and I still continue to hear it, it's more of a safety issue here at the school. So we have to work and do a better job to making sure that this school is a lot safer. And that's where the question is, well, I don't feel my child is safe. That's why they need a cell phone. So it's
Yep,
more
I heard
of a
those
safety
arguments,
concern
absolutely,
than
I did,
anything else.
yeah.
And that starts with our staffing level that's depleted right now.
I would concur with that as well. Mr. Homer, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to ask, do you need anything for a vote for this moving forward, or are we contemplating any change to the current policy that we voted for this year? Do we need to make an amendment, or like our colleagues were saying too, if we look at data, possibly procuring something for later on this year, then we wouldn't necessarily need to change the policy. It's just a matter of when we're implementing it versus
Correct.
the time. So do we need to entertain anything to table this for a later meeting, or to just continue with the current policy that we have in place? I just think we can't, maybe we can't implement the policy yet because we don't have that final conclusive, taking the phone, locking it up or something. So
I don't know if we can ask legal, maybe we can just suspend it at this level and just keep the policy into place. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's,
if we receive more information or feedback, if there's an alternate company or vendor or something like that we explore, then we don't have to make the change to the policy.
And this is why I was saying, middle school, because I definitely agree. I think if there's any place we should start, it should be middle school, so that they're used to having this as part of their regular day-to-day activities. By the time they come up to the high school, they've already, adapted to the change. But what we can do is if, over the next couple of months, I realize you're a very busy man, Dr. Cobbs, and so if we can table this till maybe the first of the year, because the money is still in the budget, and I'm with Mr. Rodriguez. If we have it, I would like to try something, even if it's only at the middle school level, and not do away with it altogether. And then that way, if we realize by the first of the year that this is something that can't actually happen in this academic year, then we would have to vote to change the policy. So I will put another policy meeting on the books for right after the first of the year, and then why don't we revisit this then and see how we're doing with the existing policy, and if there are any other vendors beyond yonder that we could possibly utilize, even if it's not the full scope that we had originally planned. Does that sound fair to you? Okay. All right, I'm going to move on. So the number 3 and number 4, I think, are, I don't want to combine them, but I'm going to combine them because one of the discussions for new policies is something that came up that we as a committee have thought about, and that is individual one-on-one contracts within the district and what those contracts look like. And so with our chief financial officer being on leave at this point, we're looking at contracts, and one of the things that we would like to do is change those contracts so that the school CFO's reporting I should say, hierarchy of their ladder is not only that they would report out any changes in the budget, any changes, whether they're up or down or sideways. It is, not just the, superintendent that is communicated to, but it bypasses the superintendent, and there's a fiduciary responsibility for that CFO to report it up to the school committee as well, so that they don't have to be tied to just communicating to their direct report. And I just want to throw that out there because I know this is something that I've thought about as well, to make sure that what has happened in the past is never communicated in the way, to this committee, the way it, for lack of a better phrase, the way it rolled out over the past 8 weeks. And so, number 1, I think we should talk about a new policy for the school CFO reporting up. I think that should be changed and rewritten. And also, I'm opening up the floor for any discussion for new policies, if there's any other ideas for us to talk about. And on top of that, I also passed out the policy adoption process so that, in this meeting, it's, an informational discussion, and then we can always come back and formalize it. But right now, let's open it up to discussion points of what we think should change if we want to adopt new policies. Ms. Rivas-Mendez?
I really want to adopt the policy on the EDI training policy.
Yep.
So we had approved when you and Jared came on, which was last year. That was the last time we took that training. So it would make sense, ideally, to have that training biannually.
Yeah.
So because this school committee is going to be changing in January, that's a good time to have new members and the old members have a refresher on that policy. Now, because it is a very, as we have experienced, a very a great policy that talks about different things, especially on equity and decision making when we make these policies and think about our kids. I highly recommend that EDI training policy to be given by an outsider, not somebody that works for the Brockton public school system. So the outsider that had done that before was Manuel and Amina Pilgrim. His name is Manuel. I'm brain farting, but I can give you that full name. Thank you, Judy. So Manuel Fernandez and Amina Pilgrim. Thank you.
I know, right? I agree with that. I really do. And I know that we have money in the budget for
So
that.
as we see, it was very impactful to one of our members. So making sure that that training continues going so it can continue to be impactful.
Absolutely. So we'll work on policy for that for the next time we come around. Updating the school CFO reporting structure. Anything else on the floor? Mr. Rodriguez, please.
I think when it comes to contracts, and we all sit and negotiate contracts with the unions, and just when it comes to one-on-one, I think that should, before the superintendent has the authority to sign off, that the school committee approves that with the final approval, because that also with the one-on-one contracts, that's monetary, and we have to make sure it's budgeted. And that somebody just doesn't come in after we, create our budget, because there's, some money there, and they're tied into a 3-year contract. So I think one-on-ones should fall under the committee's authority at this level, what we're dealing with right now. And then also, I would like, I mean, if this is possible, I think, legal will have to answer this, is that we have the ability to create our own Chapter 44 account. And I think that the school department should have its own Chapter 44 account when it comes to surplus. As you know, that right now, there's a lot of positions that we budgeted for that's not filled, and we will have a surplus within our net spending. And once those dollars are allocated to the school district, I don't think it's feasible or wise for us to vote as a body to hand it back over to the city. Once those dollars come into our pockets, that it should remain there. So I think creating that Chapter 44 account for any surplus dollars will stay within the school committee's authority, that we can use it down the road for any, if we get into some type of fiscal compromise down the line, or just use those funds for anything that we deem necessary.
The other thing that I would say too, Mr. Rodriguez, I agree with you in regards to the individual contracts being committee approved, but also making sure that those individual contracts are not just vetted by the superintendent and us, but also they make it back to HR, and HR is tracking all contracts.
Agree with you. It's human resources. They should have every employee's contracts on file.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Actually, they do, and they're in the munis system as well, so the human resources, they generate the contracts from the human resources office, so, before I sign them.
Well, I appreciate that that is the practice today, but I just want to make sure that is also the practice, Dr. Cobb's, moving forward. So appreciate, I know that the past couple of months have been a challenge in terms of not just taking over the district, but also, managing through new processes that need to be put in place, which slows down your day, I'm sure, every day. And I, hopefully we'll start to see a pickup now, but I know that there's been a really intentional process of making sure that everything that we put in place is not only compliant, but everyone's on the same page, it's transparent, those types of things. So for that, thank you. Any other business we want to discuss? Mr. Rodriguez?
With the, I know we're waiting to get an update presentation on the HR audit, so I'm not sure if we want to have that prior to looking at if we have to design a policy surrounding HR, so I'm not sure where we are on getting that presentation, because I know that report was generated months ago, so if we can
Yeah, you're right.
probably schedule something
Yep.
before the end of the year.
You got it. Okay, I think I have everything. Is there anything else on the floor right now? And then I will also, as I said, I will make sure that we have another policy meeting after the first of the year so that we can revisit all four of these topics, update on the HR audit, like we talked about, a new policy for the school CFO reporting, negotiating contracts and making sure they're committee approved, and they always make it back to HR, and then looking into creating a Chapter 44 account for the school committee itself. Does that sound about right? Yes, and I have that, sorry. I have that like as checked off, but I want to make sure that it goes officially into policy. But I have that already in the budget because I did work on that with Mike, because I agree with you. I think for every new legislative session that we have, every committee member should go through that. So, absolutely. Okay, if we don't have any other business in the interest of time, can I get a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn. Mrs. Sullivan?
Second.
And properly seconded by Ms. Mendez. Can I get a show of hands? Okay, excellent. Thank you, everybody. It's adjourned. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kathleen Ehlers, and today it is October 24th, the time being 7:03. I will open the meeting for our Audit Firm Selection Advisory Committee meeting. We're in the George Romm Little Theater here at Brockton High School on Forest Ave. And just to read into the record, this meeting can not only be attended in person, but it'll be held and will be accessible to the public by way of Brockton Community Access, the Brockton Public Schools website, and the YouTube and Comcast Channel 8 and 1071 HD version. You can also gain public access by the meeting link of www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Honestly, let's first stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now establish a quorum. Ms. Sullivan? Yes. Mr. Homer?
Here.
Ms. Rivas-Mendez?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez? Ms. Azak?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
And the Vice Chair, Kathy Ehlers, is here as well. Thank you so much. First on the agenda is, and the purpose of this meeting tonight is for us to invite our advisory committee members that we had selected to help us, contribute to help us decide on the audit firm that we're going to use for the independent study. And so right now we have one of our attendees here. Her name is Brenda Dean. I would like to invite Brenda up to introduce herself and just say a few words about why you wanted to be part of this committee. You can use that.
Madam Chair, if I could, just for the record, I'm here as well. I just need the minutes to reflect that. Thank you.
Oh, yes, sorry. The chair, the mayor is here as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brenda Dean. I'm from Brockton. I've grown up here. I think that I'm able to help in the selection, and I'm looking forward to working with you all for some answers.
Excellent.
Thank you.
No problem. And if you want to stay there, Brenda, so that you can contribute, because the next on the agenda is not just the introduction, but we need to discuss a potential vote for the criteria for the audit committee. And so at this point, we had decided when we first rolled out all of the applications that it wouldn't be anybody that's related to an elected official in the city of Brockton. It wouldn't be anybody that's related to a Brockton Public School employee. I'm opening up to the floor, and to also Brenda, is there anyone else that has any other selection criteria that they would like to have considered?
Vice Chair, I think it has to be an independent external firm that has done municipal, city or town audits in the past relative to school and municipal endeavors.
I agree. Any other feedback from the group?
Ms. Ehlers.
Mr. Homer, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't remember if it was a discussion point or if it was something that we put in writing, but I think there was also, there might have been a conversation just about the credentials or the recommendations from a firm that's bidding to kind of do this audit too, if they had past experience or something, if we would have, if we would be able to look at that too, if the committee would be able to see if that company that was bidding to do the job had previously worked with other districts, if we had references or something. I think we might have talked about that, or it might have come up once before, but I don't know if it was just mentioned in passing. But
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Chair?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan. Go ahead. You had your hands up.
Mr. Sullivan?
I was wondering, do we have a list of people that are interested in doing this audit? Or a list of firms?
We do. We have 3 firms that right now were recommended to us from DESE that we should consider. And so out of those 3, that's, I think that's the initial selection group that we can look at. But I think the most important thing right now is what is the criteria that we want for that audit firm, regardless if it's one of the 3. Like, what do we want to make sure happens in the audit, how we want the audit to be handled, like all of those things is why the floor is open right now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair, I was just wondering how long the application process should be. Like, how long do you keep it open for applicants to apply, for audit firms to apply? You know, is it 5 business days? Is it 2 weeks, 10 business days? And then the process of applying, it's different than when you apply for a job, right? You go through HR. Would it be similar in scope to what we did for the community members, where Jess Hodges in her capacity was, you know, in essence, the one that was vetting it out and providing it back to us? Not vetting it out, but she was the recipient, and then she would send it to us to vet out. So I think those are some things we have to think about. I don't know what the term would be, meaning how long it would be. And then just to piggyback with Jared, you know, when you apply for a job, you do your curriculum vitae, you know, your resume, you do your cover letter. You know, I concur with what Jared said. We want these people to provide past practices, past references, past endeavors, as long as it's not private. But I think the biggest thing is we got to get it out there to start getting some applicants. And I don't know how long, whatever the will of the committee is, but I would think it would be, you know, 5 business days or 10 business days. I can't imagine it would be more than that. That's just my thought.
And I actually agree with that in terms of it being a week, because we already have 3 that have been recommended by a really valuable resource, being the commissioner. But the other thing we want to think about is not just the kind of the background check and past references, how long to keep it open, but then, I just lost my track of thought, I'm sorry. Transparency, independent study, past experience. I'm just going through in my head some of the things that we already talked about as a team. I'm very interested in making sure, to Mr. Rodriguez's point last time, like not just speed, but accuracy and picking the right firm. I think that goes true with your comment a few minutes ago, Mr. Chair, and that is that making sure that, that they've done something of this magnitude, of this level in the past. I will say yesterday I happened to be, and I told Mr. May this, I happened to be at a conference and sat with Commissioner Riley, and so I had an interesting conversation with him as well yesterday, but one of the things he's most concerned about is making sure that it is an independent auditor with no relations to Brockton whatsoever, and that it's a completely transparent audit, so that everything that is uncovered is divulged not only to DESE, but also to the constituents of Brockton and to all of us as a team. And so those seem to be the most important. I do think that keeping it open for a week is long enough. This is just my opinion. I'm throwing it out to the floor because the next step would be having these firms come in and tell us why we should pick them, why they're the right candidate. And so am I off with that, Attorney Spatafor, that we were going to have them come in and basically tell us about why we should choose them as an audit firm? And if we have 3 options, they would then come up and then tell us, essentially, we've done this before, this is old hat for us, this isn't a big deal. And then the other thing I'm just saying that I think should be part of the decision is not everybody goes into audits with the same mindset. And so I'm sure one company may tell us that they can complete this because they have the bandwidth to do it faster than another. And then I think cost. I think we have to look at, all of those things. And so I'm just throwing that out there for everybody. Ms. Azak?
Thank you, Mrs. Ehlers. So you just touched base on, one of my questions is I would like to see them present rather than just see what we're seeing on paper. I want to see exactly what you just touched based on is, how big of a firm is it? Your team, what have you done in the past? And we're not rushing this, but we are getting into the winter months and holiday months. So we do want to at least get the firm chosen before the end of the year. But as far as a presentation, I'm a visual person. I want to see you present. I want to know what you've done in the past. Looking at the paper, everything looks great on paper, but I'd like to meet with the firm and have them present to us. And as Mr. Homer and Chair Sullivan had mentioned, what have you done in the past? What districts? And what was the outcome? And, what procedures were in place and things like that. So I would definitely want to make sure that they be prepared to present to us. It's just like we're interviewing. We want to pick the best candidate that's going to be able to give us
the most for, depending what we're paying, we want the best of the best to help us and guide us through this. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, to be honest with you. Any other comments while we're, Mr. Rodriguez, please.
When it comes to reporting with the documents, with the finders, with the audit, I would like it that each member of this committee receive it. I don't think it should just go to our law firm or go to the superintendent's office. Like everybody gets that independently confidential. Actually, we should. Is that confidential before it's?
If it comes to each of you, it won't be confidential.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to make sure that that document is provided to us firsthand.
Got it.
Vice Chair, I think we might be joined by some more community members that are on this committee.
Oh, excellent. Do we have Rachel Etienne with us? Oh, Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, Miss Brenda, at this point, if you wouldn't mind sitting down, and Rachel, if you don't mind stepping up and introducing yourself and just give us a few words of why you wanted to be part of the committee.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Rochelle Etienne. I am actually a parent of a student that goes to Brockton Public School. My daughters actually were here for the middle school section, parts of their high school career, well, educational career at Brockton Public School. But it's very important to me that we be able to provide for these kids, and it starts with this audit and what comes out of the finance.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being part of this. And you, Elizabeth Pyers, could you do the same, please, for us? And thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth. Longtime resident of Brockton, and my children as young as elementary school, now both my oldest two in Brockton High School. I wanted to be part of this just to see the process through, making sure that everything was done as best as possible. And that's basically why I wanted to join.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'm super excited that we have, individuals that have students in the system. I think that's really important as well. So we've got a really good array of opinions, voices out there, and so we appreciate you getting involved and being part of this process with us, because this is new to us, and it's as many voices as we have is really important.
Yeah, we're committed.
Yeah, you. Thank you.
Vice Chair, if we could, again, for the record, were those the three permanents, and then we have an alternate as well?
Yes, we do have an alternate,
Okay.
which is a Miss Miriam Baradigi. Is she here? Miss Miriam is not here, but all three of our selected individuals are here, and that's Brenda Dean, Rochelle Etienne, and Elizabeth Pyers. And thank you all three of you for being part of this. Okay, and so I want to just kind of get back to any other criteria that we want to put on the record. Mr. Homer, please.
Just piggybacking, I don't know if Ms. Asak, if this might have been one piece of what you mentioned too, but if we had a large firm with multiple employees or a large team that was coming to do this, is when we're mentioning credentials or putting that out as part of the bid to request that, what would be the mechanism that we would ensure that the team doesn't involve people who attended Brockton Public Schools, are related to anyone working in the city of Brockton, anything like that too? Does that mean that we would ask that firm to provide the credentials or the resume or something for each person on the team working on the audit? Is that how deep we would have to specify that? I don't know if that's like a legalese kind of question, but just so that it's kind of clear about how we're making sure that we're finding that independent person, and how do we set up those guardrails to make sure that that's independent?
Sure. So I know for the larger firms, they are huge, right? They have thousands of employees. So asking for the resumes of the people who would be serving on the team, I think is reasonable. And I think apart from just asking them to attest that they're not related to anyone elected official or a Brockton Public Schools employee, I don't know that there's more we could ask of them than their own statement that they aren't related to anyone. I know for the committee members, we also asked questions about campaign finance donations. I don't know if that's a similar criteria you'd like to use for the team members for the audit.
Could you say that one more time, Attorney Spatafor? I'm
Sorry, yeah, the campaign finance donations was something we had asked that
Yes.
nobody who, for the advisory committee, that nobody who was going to serve on the advisory committee had made campaign donations to any current
Yep.
Brockton elected officials. That may be another, that's a more, something we can independently verify. Familial relations, I think we're going to need to specify that we don't mean immediate family. Who's a Brockton Public Schools employee or a Brockton elected official.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that we can only go so far in terms of asking, like to go so deep, but I do think that, to Mr. Homer's point, we should be saying, can you verify that everyone on your team that's going to be working on this specific audit doesn't have any of those relations with a Brockton, school employee or has made any donations to any elected officials in the city? I don't think that's a whole lot to ask. I mean, Attorney Spatafor, that's pretty basic, right?
Yeah, it's a typical conflict of interest request.
Yep. Okay, that sounds good. The chair?
Vice Chair, I was just wondering if the three community members had any criteria that they wanted to provide as well, since we're all one team on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. It's okay. I was gonna, because I wanted to give each of them a chance to speak.
No. If you had any ideas that we should also incorporate to the criteria for the audit firm.
My question I was gonna ask when they put forth their proposal, if whatever the amount of staff they had, if they were gonna be interviewed, that was what we did with self-help. I don't know your process.
Gotcha. Elizabeth or Rochelle, do either of you have any questions or any comments or considerations for the audit firm that you want to make sure that we adhere to?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah, in terms of like relationships, just making sure they have a direct relationship with any of my members here, and as far as like the city of Brockton, like there's no funds.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
no, I was just saying, I think you guys have pretty much covered it. Just making sure that they have no direct ties to the city is huge. Make sure the funds are going to the correct place. This is how we got here in the first place, so.
Yep, fair point. Ms. Pires?
I heard you saying when we're choosing whoever's going to be going through the process, making sure that they have the bandwidth to make this happen. Making sure the firm, I like the point of the interviewing process, not just what they say they can do, but
Yeah.
actually proving it. I like that. So that's basically it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, Attorney Spatafor, am I missing anything?
No, I kept notes if you want me to read kind of what I gathered from the discussion.
If you don't mind, that would be great.
Just so everyone's on the same page, I'll work with Jess after today to get the posting ready and up on the Brockton Schools website, and we can send it to anyone who's been recommended to us. And certainly the committee members can all share it with any of your networks. So for the process, I heard 5 business day posting period with the requirement that we will schedule live interviews for them to come in and meet with you. People may ask for Zoom opportunities. I can bring that to you to consider if that's something that you would want to do. First priority is an independent external firm. The team members would each provide resumes showing their relevant experience and attest to the fact they are not related to any Brockton Public Schools employees or Brockton elected officials. They would confirm that they have not made any campaign finance donations to any current Brockton elected officials. We would want to make sure they have experience with auditing municipalities, ideally school systems, and that they can provide us a list of relevant clients and ideally some clients that we're able to contact to provide some references. That we would want to make sure they can balance efficiency, cost, and that, again, the relevant experience of each of the team members is something that you'd want to see. Does that sum it up? Did I miss anything?
No, that sounds, you just bundled that all up into that package. It sounds good. So, yeah. Does everybody agree that the 5 days is enough time? I want to make sure, we threw that out, but I want to make sure we're all comfortable with it being posted for 5 days. Yeah, okay. I think we're good then.
Do you want to set a date for the interviews, just while we're all here together?
Yes.
Would that make sense to set a date for the meeting? Let me grab my phone.
Yes, and can it be a school committee meeting?
Well, it would be the advisory committee, right? Who's
Yep.
gonna interview you'd probably want to give yourself at least an hour, 2 hours maybe, if you're gonna have, I know of a firm that reached out to me, just knowing that I was your counsel. There's the 3 firms that reached out via DESI, so at least there's probably gonna be 4 interested, if not more. So you figure each of them 15 minutes, that's at least an hour, and then some deliberation among the committee. So I'm thinking probably a 2-hour meeting is necessary. So if we get this posted this week, probably 5 days, brings us through next week to get all the material together. So we'd probably be looking the week of November 6th, which I know is election week, so it might be busy at the front end of the week. But you don't have a school committee meeting on the 7th, but that's election day.
We do on the 14th.
You do on the 14th, but you're going to need 2 hours for the advisory committee, right? So
Yeah, so I'm
we
wondering,
do it before.
well, that's what I was just thinking. I don't know if everybody,
We can't, we have the conference.
oh, gotcha, okay.
Oh, the mask conference, that's right, that's right.
And Attorney Spatafor, you're there.
I am.
So that
Would you
week-
want to look at the 8th or the 9th? I don't know if that's.
That's the day of the
Oh, that
conference.
is the mass conference. You're right. You're right. What about so the 14th is school committee, the 15th
Wednesday, the 15th?
or the 16th?
It would have to be, I'm just saying, it would have to be later, like around 7 o'clock.
7, yeah.
If that works for everybody on the 15th or this, I would say the 15th before the 16th, but that's just me.
It's a Wednesday and a Thursday. Do you all have a?
Does that work for the community members as well?
15th? 15th, okay.
How's the 15th for everybody else?
Doesn't work for me, but if it works for everybody else, I will be away that week on work conference.
Gotcha, okay. How about everybody else? Let's start there.
We could Zoom you in, Cynthia, too, if you're interested in watching.
Yeah, right. Check it on YouTube. What about everybody else? Is everybody else good with the 15th?
Wednesday, the 15th, would 7 to 9?
Yep, 7 to 9.
Okay, I'd like to include that in the application, just so the firms know the commitment
Yep.
that we're asking of them to appear for that meeting. Okay.
Perfect, 7 to 9. No, I know that we're at the Arnone on the 14th because of drama, so let me just confirm, it might still be at the Arnone based on what's happening here at the high school.
I think it will be, yeah. I think it
Yeah,
will be.
I think it will end up being at the Arnone. Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Spatafor. We appreciate that compilation of what just happened in the past half hour. I want to thank all of our advisory committee members for coming out tonight and being part of this. And we look forward to having you back on the 15th when we have, 3 viable candidates to present to us what they think they can do for us. And then we'll be very interested in your voices then as well. And at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just on the motion again, just for the community members, so the Brockton High Drama is going to be using this venue, so we'll be in the auditorium on Belmont Street at the Unknown School that night, but you'll get notice anyhow as members, so thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So,
Motion to adjourn.
oh, wait a second, Ms. Azak actually has a question. I
Quick
think.
question. So we're already into the week of November 14th. So we have a meeting on the 14th and the 15th.
Correct.
And then we're going to get close to Thanksgiving. Can we make sure the members are available for Tuesdays for future meetings that they know we'll meet on Tuesdays? And should we pencil something in for early December or the last week in November?
For,
Future meetings, once we pick the audit firm. We were going to try to keep these for Tuesday nights, correct? Or am I
no, I guess I'm
mistaken?
just,
Just so we can make sure that they know we're going to be meeting on Tuesdays and to make sure they're available. We all know to keep our Tuesdays open, but just so that the.
I'm sorry, I totally missed your point.
Sorry.
No,
Just so they know that we meet on Tuesdays and just moving forward, keep your Tuesdays flexible until we get some dates in.
Yes, I'm so sorry,
It's okay.
Ms. Azak.
It's okay. I
was
just
like-
wanted to make sure that they knew.
Yeah, no, you're right, that we don't normally meet on Wednesdays. It is usually Tuesdays, and so that is, Ms. Azak is right. Like, just to be aware that Tuesday nights is usually the nights that we make. This is an anomaly because we're trying to fit it in.
So if we're trying to, once we get the audit firm and we're trying to schedule future dates, we're going to try to
Keep them on
keep,
Tuesdays.
keep at least our advisory as well for Tuesdays, if we can. It's it's going to get tough, but just so the members know, the advisory members know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Mr. Rodriguez, did you have a question?
So during this interview process, are we going to actually select it that day, or are we going to just interview and then set another meeting to actually do the selection and vet it out?
I think we should, this is just me, I think we should hear what everyone says, and then I think we should have another meeting and vet it out so that we can talk about it as a group. But I think this 2-hour session should be just hearing what they can bring to the table, and then we decide who we want to be at the table, if that makes sense. Yeah. Mr. Chair?
Just on that, I mean, it's like we talked about, it's like a job interview, right? So when you interview someone, then you do a Corey background check, you do a reference check. So they're going to present that night, but then we really want to substantiate, we can, in our own minds, narrow down who we think, but we have to do a lot of reference checks, and we have to see what their timing schedule is, what their price point is. So I don't think we could vote that night, because
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
that the background component, the reference check might take a little time.
No, I agree with that, and I think it's, we need to do our due diligence on that end as well. So, thank you. A motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. Can I get a show of hands? Okay, everybody, thank you so much.
Did you raise your hands? I hereby call the special school committee meeting for the Brockton Public Schools School Committee. It's Tuesday, October 24th. It's the year 2023. It is 7:30 p.m. We're in the George Romm Little Theater here at Brockton High, which is 470 Forest Ave. At this time, I just want to read the following into the record. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, which is www.bpsma.org. YouTube, and also Comcast Channel 8, and then the 1071 HD version. The public can access this meeting via the following link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. I will now, I have called the meeting to order. I would ask us to please stand and salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, I do want to thank BCA for always being here to film this. I just need to call the roll to establish a quorum. Mrs. Sullivan? Mr. Homer? Here. Vice Chair?
Here.
Mr. Rivas-Mendez?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Azek?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
The chair is here as well. We have established a quorum. There are, according to the sign-in sheet, there are no hearing of visitors that have signed in tonight. And I do want to thank Mrs. Campbell for always helping us on that endeavor. Agenda 5 now is new business, and it's the following: requests for authorization to submit proposals and expenditure of funds, action requested. And there's two components of that. There's FY 2024 MyCap CAP Development and Implementation Grant, which is FC 0598. And that's in the dollar amount of $968,000 even. And then the next one is FY 2024 Financial Literacy Planning and Implementation, FC 104, in the amount of $15,000 even. Dr. Cobbs, our acting superintendent, is here tonight if there's any questions relative to those two matters. Vice Chair, please.
Dr. Cobbs, is this a result from the seminar yesterday, the MyCap
Yes.
funds? So, okay, then I wanted to make sure, because I'm like, I 100% think this is a great idea. And I don't know if maybe you want to explain what MyCap is for anybody that isn't 100% sure what the funds are going to be used for.
I can try, but again, I just want to just back up first, and we had to put these in at the last minute because the committee has voted to want to review anything before we submit it, so a lot of times they don't fall within the meeting dates, so we would either have to review it ourselves or not apply for the grant, so that's why we had to change the agenda tonight to put these in.
No problem.
Okay. So I can read here because I saw this today, and that's why we got it in today. To provide supplementary support to school districts currently engaged in implementing of MyCap, interested in starting the planning of My Career Academy plan. So this is really to support the CTE program. Dr. Ferreira kind of sent this to us at the last minute, but. So I'll read this into the record. MyCap is a student-driven process designed to ensure all students graduate from high school, college, and career ready. The MyCap process requires schools to create a scope and sequence to guide the implementation of MyCap. This grant will provide planning, team members, supplementary support necessary to attend professional development, team meetings outside of school hours, or purchase materials for the MyCap process.
So do you mind if I add some anecdotal to that? Sorry? Do you mind if I add some anecdotal to that? Yes. Okay. With the MyCap program, it basically is going to set up our students. It's going to start either in middle school or even freshman year to start every single one of our students on a college path, a career path, whatever their path is. That's what it does. It invests in them. And this flows right into the new legislation that came out in June 2023 about better access to college school, better access for our students, but basically it's putting that prep for the students on the back of the districts to make sure that we have students and we have individuals, not just guidance counselors, but we also have career coaches, that sort of thing, to start talking about where a student wants to see themselves in 3 to 5 years after high school. And not everybody picks college, sometimes they pick a career path, but it's making sure that the student picks the right path for them, and it's very intentional. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's a really great program. It's a state program. MyCap is run through the state, and so I think it's a great idea for Brockton in general. And it starts so early. It's not like a senior year type thing. This starts like freshman year and even as far into middle school. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other questions or comments relative to these two matters? If not, there is I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. So this grant doesn't fund any positions at all? It's just for training and support
correct.
services? Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Mrs. Sullivan, did you have a question? No. Okay. What's the will of the committee at this time? Action was requested on this.
Motion to approve the request for authorization to submit proposals for expenditure funds for fiscal year 2024 on MyCap Development Implementation Grant for $968,000, and for fiscal year 2024 Financial Literacy Planning and Implementation for another $15,000.
Second.
Motion on the
The whole
floor.
committee second.
I'm going to give that to Mr. Rodriguez. There's a motion on the floor by the Vice Chair, is properly seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. Opposed, raise your hand. It does pass unanimously. We will now go on to agenda item 6, which is executive session. And I need to read both into the record if I could. Agenda item 6, executive session, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competency of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Mr. Michael P. Thomas. And then Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Interim Superintendent. To go into executive session, of course, we need a motion. Is there a motion on the floor? Motion to go into Motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan. It was properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan to go into executive session. I will read the roll at this time on the motion. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Homer?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivas Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
The chair also says yes. We will go into executive session. We will not be coming back into open forum. Thank you.